It's all about peace, spreading love in the world. So I gotta represent rebels for joy, positivity. You know that we're all about it. Magic happens when you align your purpose, passion, and power. Just believe in your greatness. I know for sure the light that you radiate too strong to ignore. Emotional revolution. It's time that we start. Love, we need more. We are rebels for joy. Woo!
Started. Hey, Rebel Sisters, welcome back to another episode of Rebels for Joy. I'm one of your rebellion leaders, Bonnie Kelly, and I am here with my nerd girl extraordinaire. I am so excited to have her join us and to bring her wisdom and her guidance to all of you who are listening to this today. I want to just first off and start by welcoming Brittany Bullen. Hi, girl. How are you?
Hello. I am so great. I'm happy to be here.
I am so thrilled. So fun fact, you guys, like how me and Brittany met is that she had no idea that I was stalking her for years on social media, right? Watching her ads. Like I love ads. I love sales. And, you know, Brittany, you are one of the most creative and authentic people that just, you know, would show up and shine in your consistency, and it was fun. And I would watch all of your ads. I was not your ideal customer avatar, but I just loved it. And I watched them all.
Thank you.
Yes. And it wasn't until really like where the coronavirus hit and you had posted a picture, you paid to promote a picture that really just went straight to my heart and just told everybody that it's going to be okay. And it was like in that moment, I sent you a message and I'm like, you don't know me, but I now love you.
Awesome.
Yeah. So Brittany, first, before we dive in, because I want you to tell people the story of why you decided to do that. I know we're going to dive into optimizing for joy, which I think is super cool. I'm going to tell them a little bit more about who you are as well. But in this show, we always start off with a little bit of cheese. Are you ready for a corny joke?
Bring the cheese.
All right. So what did the Buddhist ask the hot dog vendor?
What?
Make me one with everything.
I love it. I love it.
It's great, right? So funny. So funny. All right. So for those of you who don't know who Brittany is, she is actually the NerdyGirl. That's like her website, even nerdygirl.co. She helps women really embrace their inner nerd. But what I thought was really interesting about your, when you put your description of what you do is that that you help your clients mashing your clients' inner potatoes until they're magically delicious. I about fell out of my chair with that one.
Thank you. Thank you. I like that.
You're a mama of four. You really help people kind of follow their dreams in embracing like themselves, showing up authentically through their sales copy and in their businesses as well. But Brittany, like, tell us a little bit more about you, and then we'll kind of just go from there.
Sure. So first and foremost, I would say I'm a marketing and mindset coach. So I work a lot with my clients on marketing strategy. We talk a lot about the left brainy stuff, stats, funnels, automation. But the kind of common thread that weaves throughout all of that is nerdiness. And to me, nerdiness is just your unique passion, your unique voice, your unique take on things, your personality. I have a whole book out called Personality Marketing that's all about, you know, kind of following your nerdiness in the direction of your dream. So rather than trying to put yourself out there like everybody else, you figure out what are the pieces of me that are most relevant to the thing that I offer, and then you kind of fuse the two together to set yourself apart online and to kind of give you the motivational fuel that you need to keep it interesting over all the ups and downs that entrepreneurship brings, which, you know, we all are all too familiar with. So we talk a lot about marketing. We talk a lot about mindset. The potato thing, I have a whole book on that we could talk about or not if you want. But that's just the metaphor that I use for limiting beliefs, because I have a whole 5-step process that you can use to mash a mind potato. And it seemed like a good metaphor at the time.
I love it. I think it was so cute. I mean, it just literally, I was laughing. But let's talk about this inner girl, this inner nerd for a second, because my spider senses tell me that there was probably a time where you weren't following your inner nerd.
That's an excellent question. And you're absolutely right. I think, you know, to spare you the long and scary details of the early business story that we all have, long story short, I the first iteration of NerdyGirl and Company was NerdyGirl Writers, and we were writers for hire. And my original vision was for it to be a business opportunity for women to be able to basically create their own little mini marketing agencies and sell content marketing services to businesses. And that was really successful and also really unsuccessful in the sense that I attracted a lot of attention. My ads performed really well. I got a lot of people who were really excited about the idea. But what I ended up with was a lot of people who were really excited about the idea, but nobody who wanted to go sell. And so that was when, stylistically speaking, there's like a side story, slightly less interesting story where like I was trying to like be fancy and professional and not awkward in my videos. And they were just like, I think at one point I called my show like the $1 billion brand show, thinking I would attract billionaires because I said the word, and like stuff like that you do when you're like trying to attract people and you don't know any better. So there was that piece. But I think the more meaningful piece of that story for me was when I kind of symbolically like put the glasses on myself and I decided like, we're not NerdyGirl. Like I need to go out and be NerdyGirl now and attract clients online because I've got a lot of women who want me to send them work and we need more clients. And so that was my whole kind of first foray into online marketing was just trying to drum up more business for our writers.
Yeah. Wow. So what do you think was the biggest fear you had to overcome to put those glasses on, metaphorically?
Well, I mean, I think the scariest thing about it was feeling like, well, whenever you put money behind your marketing, it's terrifying. Like it's still terrifying for me. I mean, like the more you end up spending, the scarier it gets because the more you have at stake to lose, right? But like at the time, I knew even from the beginning that in order to get my videos, my content, my funnel stuff out in front of the people I wanted to get it in front of, I wasn't going to be able to count on organic reach. Even at the time, it was a lot better then than it is now. But even then, I knew that the direction it was heading, and I knew that I was going to need to figure out how to make paid traffic profitable, or else there was no way I was going to have a business that could sustain itself. And so I think that was the hardest thing, scariest thing, and continues to be. I mean, I always say like that's the whole game of being in business is figuring out if you can turn an investment into a profit.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. But what was the scariest thing for you? Like that's the scariest thing for the business, but what do you think like within yourself? I mean, stepping into that vulnerability state and like now you're in front of the camera, you don't get to hide behind the scene anymore and you totally have to be seen. Like, what do you think for you was the scariest part?
Well, it's interesting because I think most people kind of associate like nervousness with being on camera and being in the spotlight, but that was never my issue because I'm a performer. That was what I was doing up until the point when I started this company. I had written and produced my an original musical, performed it on 42nd Street, like all that stuff had been checked off the bucket list at that point. And so the idea of, kind of switching on my most vibrant self and turning on a camera was not a scary thing at all. That's why I say like the financial piece was the big vulnerability.
Yeah.
Like that was always a scary thing because that's the ultimate test, right? Of who you are as an entrepreneur, as a marketer, as a writer. Like for me, I always thought my work was good. Like I always kind of had that underneath, like my degree is in writing. I am a performer. I felt like on paper it should work, but if I put ad spend behind it and it doesn't work, then what does that mean about me? And honestly, that's been my biggest emotional roller coaster as an entrepreneur, is learning how to separate my sense of self-worth with the way my ads perform or the way my profit and loss statement looks like, or any of the financial metrics that are objectively proof of how well your stuff is doing.
Let's dive into that, because I cannot tell you how many people that I know, and I'm sure like a lot of your students struggle with this as well, is when your worth is attached to your work. What do you see as some of the biggest hurdles that when your worth is attached to your work that shows up in business?
Oh man, so many. It's huge. It's huge because like it kind of, there's like two sides of it. It's like the it's not even really a positive side, but like on one side, you get like really enamored with your ideas. Like because it's your baby, you just assume that everybody's going to love it. And so sometimes you put it out there recklessly without doing the necessary market research and all this stuff, like to actually validate your offer before you go like pour a bunch of money into it. So that's one thing I see. Another thing is like hiring, like just finding the right team members is so, so crucial to growing a business. And it's definitely to scaling a business. And if you have this kind of like fragile ego thing that's happening where it's like, and this is almost, it's not even really like a worth thing. So sorry, I'm getting off on a tangent. I'll get back to this. But the other thing that came to mind was like, it's so common to have a business owner bring a bunch of yes men around them or yes women, where it's like, I can't handle getting objective feedback from people or getting negative feedback from people. And so I'm just going to surround myself with people who think all my ideas are amazing. And because of that, they never actually get the important feedback, which is usually the negative feedback about their offers before they go out. So that's another thing. But as far as like the worth thing, I think that the biggest issue I see, especially for women, is that women have like crazy mental potatoes about money. Yeah. And it's brought into really sharp focus as an entrepreneur. I see a lot of women, and this was my story too. Like I couldn't handle the emotional weight of having full involvement in and knowledge of my numbers. So for a long time, I just like, I hired somebody else. I'm like, keep it over here. I don't want to know about it. Like, I'm just going to do my thing and just trust that the money's going to show up. You know, like I was like a law of attraction rookie. And I just thought, if I just stay positive, I just have to stay positive. And that's the only, you know what I mean? Like, because I couldn't handle what I thought those numbers meant. It was really damaging for my business. And I know a lot of women who have similar stories where they can't handle the truth of their numbers. And so they either ignore them or do other irresponsible things with them. I don't even know, but they end up getting themselves in financial trouble because they can't face reality about them.
Yeah. And that's where, you know, the ultimate self-sabotage is going to come in, is where we are hiding from that, or we are surrounding ourselves with people who are just, you know, kind of boosting us up and, you know, really aren't there to challenge us. And they might have opinions, but they're, you know, don't feel safe or secure, or, you know, they don't feel entitled to be able to share that. And they don't think that you really even want it. And I can check all of these boxes as you're saying it, by the way. I'm like, been there, check, been there, check, been there, check, right? Because I think it's like that part of, you know, I think entrepreneurship more than anything is going to show you a lot of the shadows that you haven't dealt with more than anything.
Yes. It's, oh man, a friend of mine said this recently. She was something about like entrepreneurship is like the greatest personal development course you'll ever take, or something like that.
That's amazing.
It's so true. It really just pushes you to your limits in every way.
Yeah, it does. It does. And I think there is a lot of, I love that we're saying mashed potatoes, but, you know, a lot of potatoes in our head around the money, you know, aspect of it, because, you know, it really hasn't been that long that women entrepreneurs, you know, women millionaires has really been a thing. Yeah. You know, I mean, it's really been a male driven society, a male driven. And I know for myself, when I started being in business, is that I was trying to do things the way everybody expected me to do and not embracing my inner nerd.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And well, for me, like, I can tell you how it showed up for me. It was like, I was reading all these books by like these dudes who came out of like Harvard Business School, and they were like raising these venture backed startups and like all this stuff. And I was trying to run my business like they did and spend like they did and have a team like they did, because I didn't come up through that. Like, I was making up the rules. Like, so I thought that was the way to be a successful business owner, is you act like that, rather than what I actually was at the time, which was just like me by myself with zero resources, you know, like paying my dues, like bootstrapping. Yeah. Like there's no, well, I'm sure there are schools that teach you how to do that, but I didn't go to one.
Yeah.
And I had this shame around like, oh, my little business, like I had something to prove, you know what I mean? So I went like way too big too fast and got myself into like big old financial trouble because I was too ashamed to admit that my business like was new. You know, it was just weird.
Yeah. No, I think we all go through that process. And I mean, you know, for myself, I was like making all of this money and then it wasn't enough. So I would reinvest in these other programs and these other coaches and these other people who had the solution, who had the thing. And, so I was like, oh, that's what I needed. Yeah. I needed this thing versus really recognizing that it's like, okay, Bonnie, you actually have all the skills and the tools that you need. All we need to do is apply them to these and really embrace that authentic self and allow you to shine through. And I remember, you're going to love this. I remember the day I committed to letting my inner nerd girl out.
Awesome.
And I showed up on one of my Mind Right Mondays. I used to do YouTube. That was a thing that was always like every Monday there was a video that came out. And I showed up wearing a sparkle R2D2 shirt. And I was like, I'm letting my geek flag fly is what I told everybody. And that was it. I was done being the emotional intelligent, well-polished, corporate speaking, coach. And I'm like, because I had these two lives. I was showing up in business as like this well-polished, perfect kind of person that, corporate America loved. Mm-hmm. And then at home is like, nobody ever took me seriously. Ever. They're like, you do what for a living? They're like, who would pay you? I don't understand, because I was just such a vastly different person in these two arenas. And it was like that blending that finally allowed me to, to just really be successful. And that's why I just admire so much about you and the work that you do.
Thank you. Thank you. I know I used to wear suit jackets on my videos.
Me too.
I was going to fool people. Maybe if I wear this suit jacket, they'll pay me more money.
Right. And now you're just in your Vans, right? Like you just, or your checks, you're just so cute. I love it. Okay. So what advice would you have? I mean, whether you're an entrepreneur or not, and you listen to this, whether you're just a mom, I think that all of this is so relevant and it's so powerful, is that when we're talking about really like living in our authenticity, we're talking about kind of reclaiming our joy and our happiness and, separating our worth and our work. Like what words of advice or what would you offer to them right now that you think is just, they need to hear?
Well, so one thing I work on with like all my clients, it's so funny because like people come to me for marketing, but they stay for mindset, because they like what they realize really quickly is that marketing, it's a science and it's not as complicated as we make it. You know what I mean? You just kind of like plug in the, fill in the Mad Libs of like the stuff that works. And then everything outside of that is a mental game. And so one thing that I really think the reason that my clients get results is because I am relentlessly committed to making sure that they optimize for joy. And the reason, and this is why I'm so happy to be here, because I know you feel me on this. But the way that I approach it is like, as a marketer, if, we do a lot with Facebook ads, but the same is true with any kind of ad campaign anywhere. One of the first questions you have to answer is, what are you optimizing for? What's your objective for this campaign? Because taking Facebook as an example, what happens when you choose a campaign objective with a Facebook ad is the algorithm will automatically go out and deliver your ad to the people who are most likely to take the action you want them to take. So if I'm optimizing for traffic, it's going to show my ad to the people who click. If I am optimizing for conversions, like purchase conversions, then it's going to show my ad to the people who buy. Of course, there are different ways that we ad nerds like to kind of approach this to stack our campaigns and do all the nerdy stuff that we do to turn ads into money. But the important thing to keep in mind is that this is a metaphor that can work for you in any area of your life. Figuring out, before you go and like put all this pressure on yourself, like I have to do this and so-and-so's doing this, so I have to do what they do. And I have to develop all these habits that they told me on YouTube I was supposed to develop to be a worthy human being. Before you go to make all those choices and figure out how to like put the pieces of your life together, you have to have this overarching goal that you're trying to pursue. And I don't love the word goal, like objective, target, whatever you want to call it, focus. What that does is it helps you remember why you're doing all this stuff. Yeah. And is this actually aligned with who I want to be and what I really think is going to give me a joyful life? Because at the end of the day, I think that's what we all want. Yeah. And especially in business, I see so often that entrepreneurs, the danger that everybody faces, whether they're an entrepreneur or not, is if you don't choose an objective, it optimizes by default, probably for an objective that you don't actually want. Same is true for Facebook ads. If you go through the boost post function and not the ads manager and just like don't even think about what you're going to do, it automatically chooses the post-engagement objective, which means it's going to show your ad to people who like and comment and maybe share, but not necessarily the people who are going to opt in or buy. So that may be what you want and it may not. But if you're not choosing deliberately, then you don't get a say. And that's all I'm really recommending that my clients and your listeners and whoever do, is decide, like, I'm going to put joy at the top here. Like, that's going to be the thing that's going to guide my decisions, not saving face in front of your parents, or, you know, avoiding risk at all costs, or staying comfortable at all costs, or making money at all costs. Those are the kinds of objectives that we choose by default. And that's how we get ourselves into, you know, a few years down the road, looking back and saying, like, why on earth did I do all that? And now it's cost me this, and how do I get out of it? You know, like, starting from the beginning instead and saying, this is my best guess at what's going to make my life happy right now. And you take it and you optimize for it. And then, just like a marketer, you continue to tweak, you continue to test, you continue to, you know, try new things. And if stuff's not working, you look at it and you say, why don't I feel joyful because of this? Like, what do I want to change? And that's, as far as I'm concerned, that's the work of life.
Yeah. You know, and I think that the powerful piece in this is really just, you know, starting with that joy, starting with the end in mind, right? And really focusing on, like, what's going to bring me joy in this? Because too often we put our joy on external things. We put the joy on the result. We put the joy on the relationship. We put the joy on the, you know, the money or the house, or all of these things that are outside of us and are attainable. And though they will bring us moments of joy, they're also short-lived.
Yes. And so that's why I totally think that the first, like, at least one of the first questions to ask when you're thinking about how to approach optimizing your life for joy is, who do I want to be and how do I want to feel? And, you know, what kinds of activities, what kinds of pursuits, what kinds of ideas make me feel that way? And then working from there.
Yeah, I do love that. So, you know, have you dealt with a lot of people who, you know, can't answer that question?
I think most people have a hard time answering that question because nobody ever asks it.
Yeah.
You know?
Good. So let's dive into that for a second, because I set you up because I kind of knew you were going to say, like, yeah, I deal with a lot of people like that. Because I just had this conversation yesterday, Brittany, with a friend of mine. And, you know, it was just like, she is so knowledgeable. She is so smart. And, you know, she's very successful in what she does, but she's not happy. Right? She's very successful, but she's not happy. And so she's got all the skills and the talents to go do something else and to be happy. But because there's not this clarity necessarily on this one thing that she can hone in on, she just feels paralyzed. And so she stays stuck.
I love that you asked that question, because I totally have an answer to it. Perfect. Because I was in the same place. And I think that there is a name for it, and I wish I had it because I love to name things, but I'm going to, when we're done, I'm going to name this phenomenon because I went through it and I know I'm not the only one. When I hit, like, I don't know, my second or third rock bottom in business, I was destroyed. Like, I could not get out of bed for weeks because of this issue that we were talking about, of, like, my worth being tied to my work. And I really just thought that I was just like a waste of space of a human being. And I had this really toxic relationship with my goals. And so the stuff that I used to want, the stuff that, like, back in the day used to just fuel me up and get me, like, leaping out of bed in the morning, like, I lost it. I didn't want any of it anymore because it had hurt me so much that really I totally had to shift what optimizing for joy looked like for me. Because at the time, I couldn't even, like, the thought of joy was like, I don't know if that's a thing I'm ever going to feel again. Like, it was just like, I just need to get through this day. Like, what's the best I can manage today? Like, forget about my goals, forget about all the outcomes. Like, I just want to find my way back to happiness. And I think that sometimes, like, the thing I'm trying to name here is, like, wounds of the, like, dream wounds or something like that, because that was what I was experiencing. And I think a lot of people have, where it's like you had this expectation. Yeah, you thought your life was supposed to be a certain way and it doesn't pan out that way. And you think, like, goals suck, man. Like, I don't want any more of this. Like, I don't want to want, and we, like, switch that switch off. And I think that's why, or at least one of the reasons why so many people have a hard time getting that clarity is because they're afraid to want something and not get it.
Yes.
And in those moments, I think the most powerful thing you can do is take your sights off the big outcomes for a minute and just just take it one day at a time. You know what I mean? Just think about what's my idea of like the best possible day right now. And then like really go all in on that day. And see if that helps. And for me, it totally did. Yeah. Just figuring out like, what's the best possible scenario that I can build around my current situation? And like, where can I serve? Like it was a while before I was able to get back to a place of service, but it was pretty quick because serving feels good. And so that helped. But once you're able to kind of like, assuming that's not the problem and assuming you're just kind of in this like meh state of like lack of clarity, because that was kind of where I landed after that. It's like, once I found my way back to happiness, then it was like, there was a big leap between happiness and inner peace and having goals again. Yeah. Because there was a big fear there. Like, I don't want to go back to the way I was before. Like, I'm all zen now. Like, I'm fine. Like, I don't want things because that messed me up before. But there is a healthy way to pursue goals, I discovered. And it's a much more constructive way of pursuing goals. Like, when you're coming at it from a place of like, I don't need this, but I still want it for different reasons, just because it's joyful to pursue things. And I think when you're in that space of at least being open to the possibility that a different, more joyful life is possible for you, then it becomes a matter of just like sitting with it and having somebody ask the right questions. I'm actually in the process of building a program that does this because I know how important it is to have somebody ask you the right questions that prompt you to think about, like, to start dreaming again and imagining possibilities again. Yeah. And I think a lot of us just don't take the time or give ourselves the permission to answer those questions for ourselves. But this is the perfect time. I mean, like right now, being in quarantine, I know a lot of people are really taking this time to ask themselves those questions about what do I really want and what really matters to me. And that's so, so valuable. Like what kind of a life do I want to live? You know, and is the life I'm living, is it serving my highest and best good? You know, I think a lot of people for a while, were trying to distract themselves because those questions, they just kind of bubble up, right? Like in silence, it bubbles up. Like the truth will bubble in silence, and people don't like silence. And so they were trying to find all these different things to distract themselves and keep themselves busy and finding new crutches of things to complain about and new things to like, that were like taking all of their focus and attention and not allowing themselves the space to really say like, okay, where am I feeling? Am I in attunement with joy? Am I out of alignment with joy? Like, where am I? And so like with our students, we just really threw them the same thing. We said like, look, pause time. The world hit pause. Like, what a great opportunity to just breathe into life for a moment and just assess where you are. And is it in alignment with where you want to go? And I can't tell you how many of them came back, including myself, and just saying like, there's a pivot that needs to happen here. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Right? There's a pivot. Yeah. I mean, it's really inevitable when you really go deep and ask those questions that you're going to find some stuff about your current situation that isn't what you want it to be. And I'll tell you, like, the biggest piece of this that my clients struggle with, and I'm sure you can probably relate, is that they get so deep in this mindset of thinking that somebody else out there has the answers that they don't trust that they can do what they want and still be successful. And that might be the issue that your friend is dealing with, is that maybe she knows more about what she wants than she's willing to admit to herself, but she's afraid that she can't have it, that whatever I want, and that's one of the like biggest mind potatoes there is, right? It's like what I want most isn't available to me. Yeah. And I think that's why we resist this radical amount of clarity, because we're so afraid that we're going to find out we really want something that we can't have.
Yeah. Yeah. And that was a big part of that conversation we had yesterday, because, you know, she invested in something else and she invested in something else. And so she's constantly seeking the answers outside of her. And it was really this awareness that you have all that you need. It's just like, but she had built her business up, and it took that old mentality of that grit and that grind and that hustle and the 60, 80 hours a week. And it like follows a very traditional format. And, so for her, it was like very, very heavy in, this is what it takes. And so like, she got so locked into what it would take if I tried something else, that it's just like, I'm too afraid to try something else because I know the sacrifices I had to make to get here. And now this is kind of like a revenue generating wheel. I don't really want to abandon ship, but I'm so miserable. And it's like, well, can we paint a different picture about what's possible?
Yes. It's like, I always tell my clients, there are a million ways to make $1 million.
Yeah. I love that.
And you said earlier, the thing, like, I think we're all looking for that, like that one magical funnel, that one magical offer that's going to flip the switch and all of a sudden take all my problems away. And like in your friend's case, I think we get into this mentality that's like, it's this all or nothing scenario where it's like, I either completely burn the ships or I never try anything. You know what I mean? Like, I do think there's some middle ground to be had there where you're still managing your risk. Like, she doesn't necessarily have to give up everything that she's built, but that's not to say, it's just like making a budget, which I'm now a fan of. I wasn't before, but I'm all about it now. And just the same way, like, you determine what percentage of your revenue you're going to put into marketing. You determine what percentage of your time you're going to put into new projects. And maybe that's the first step, is figuring out, okay, so my day looks like this. Like, where can I slot in some time or slot in some brain space to explore this new idea? And how can I incorporate this into my life in a way that's not going to feel like too much or not going to like send me into like psychological overdrive, but that's still going to honor my desire to explore what's possible.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. So good, Brittany. I mean, there's like 1,000 ways that we could take this right now. And I'm resonating with it because I feel this on such a deep level because I've been here. And, we just, like I said, our company was built on, people to people being out in the world. And then quarantine hits, and it was all of a sudden, it was very devastating to see, everything that you built and all of your plans and all of the things that you had built out and even all the revenue streams just decide to stop. But what a blessing it's become, because it's provided me all of this space and time and opportunities to start focus on these things that I've always wanted to do, but I've been so afraid to doing because I was doing things the way that I knew how to do. And the same with my friend, and it's really that now pivoting and saying like, what's going to bring me joy? And Brittany, I haven't been this geeky excited about shit in so long about business. I'm nerding out every day, pun intended. Yay. Girl, like on a level 12, like I'm sleeping, like business, everything. Right. And it's just like, it's so invigorating, but that never would have been available if I would have stayed doing the same thing that I always know and allowed myself to really open up and ask those hard questions about what would bring me joy here. Yeah, this is so fun. Okay, so last thing I really want to ask is, well, actually, I guess I have two things I want to ask you. Okay. So you mentioned toxic relationship with goals.
Yes.
I think that's a big deal. So I would love to maybe dive into that a little bit deeper and talk about ways that people can have a healthy relationship with goals.
Oh, that's a great question. So, I mean, I think just like we were talking about earlier, I think the source of a toxic relationship with goals is this idea that your worth is tied to your work. I think that's what makes the relationship toxic, is feeling like I want this stuff because then I'll be enough. Yeah. And what I came to discover through my own journey was that was actually stuff that I wanted for the right reasons, but I wanted them for the right reasons and the wrong reasons at the same time. And so I think it's a whole lot less about the goal and more about why you want it, and figuring out how to like systematically and regularly check yourself and make sure that that you have some sort of practice in play in your life that takes you out of ego long enough to want it for the joy of wanting it, for the impact of wanting it, for, all the reasons that don't mess with your head, that fire you up. But I think it takes some time before you can unlearn that. And I think it's not a shortcut process. Like, I think you just have to practice it and just bring awareness to those emotions when they come up. And the easy way to know is just, how do you feel? You know what I mean? Like, if you feel stressed, if you feel scared, if you feel anxious, if you feel mad, any sort of negative emotion is like, it's not bad. It's not going to like ruin your life. And that's important to reinforce, because like any personal development student knows, like sometimes we get really scared of our negative emotions and we don't need to be, but it is like a little red flag that's like, hey, you know, I need some attention. What's really going on here? And if you can give yourself the space to look at those emotions and figure out, you know, where is this coming from? Is this coming from me feeling like I have something to prove? Do I need to like love on the little me for a minute and say like, it's okay. Like you'll always be enough. This doesn't have to be the thing. There's no such thing as the thing. And even if there were, even if you were the most successful person in the whole wide world, you would still be enough, and you are enough now. And like all that stuff that you just have to say to yourself over and over again is the key to having a healthy relationship with your goals.
I love that. And actually that kind of answered my second question, which what do you think is like the best mindset somebody can have moving forward to live an optimized, joyful life?
Yes. Yeah. Well, yeah, that's totally it. And just saying like, knowing that you're enough, knowing that your achievements do not define you, knowing that it's okay not to be okay sometimes. I mean, there are like a bunch of them. There's like a big old list of distinctions that I just wish everybody could make, and skip all the suffering that teaches it to you. But I kind of think that's a little bit inevitable. Like, I really do think that suffering is the greatest teacher there is. Yeah. And as much as I would like to wish for everyone that they could just skip all the suffering and just get the lessons, I don't know if that's possible.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Well, and one of my favorite quotes is, pain is inevitable, but suffering is optional.
Yes.
Right. And where suffering stays being suffering is when you don't learn and grow, is when you just drag the pain. But what you're really describing here is that where we take that suffering and we learn from it, we take that suffering and we evolve from it. We figure out a way that it can help us be or live or do better in our lives. And then that's when it becomes optional.
Well, and another layer to that, though, that I would add is that suffering only really happens when you identify with that pain. When you interpret that pain as meaning this says something about who I am inside and what's possible when you start to tell yourself stories about what's possible for you and what's always going to happen for you, or what your reality is all about, or what you're all about, those stories are the ones that cause suffering.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Okay. Can I just say that I loved you before, but I really love you now. And my love for you just keeps growing.
The feeling is mutual.
It just keeps getting better and better. I love our friendship. All right, girl. So let's wrap this all up here in a big, beautiful bow, because I think people are really going to want to connect with you on this. I think people are going to be very excited. Our audience is really going to get a lot out of this. So tell us, where is your favorite place to hang out? And then tell us, because I know you've got something kind of like a freebie for them. You got a little gift for our people as well. So tell us a little bit about that as well.
So I actually, since I filled out your form thingy, things have changed. So I don't even know what I told you, but I'll tell you what I'm telling you now. My favorite place to hang out online is probably Facebook. But if you're going to follow me anywhere, follow me on Instagram, because you'll get more of a taste of my personal life, which I will be sharing there more soon now that I've got this launched off of my plate, which is the second thing I was going to tell you about. I just recently launched a networking organization called Connect. That I'm super, super excited about. It's super, super relevant and timely right now. I know everybody just is feeling lonely and needs that kind of nourishment of spirit, of being around people who get them and giving themselves permission to dream and to think about their vision and to troubleshoot it and think about new ideas and all this stuff. And we just had our first meeting today. Bonnie was there. Thank you so much for coming and supporting. It was awesome. And the feedback that I've gotten already was so positive. And I think the thing they got the most out of it was just that it wasn't even so much like I met some other business owners that might refer me to, or might buy my thing. It was so much more about having access to that round table of other people to share their wisdom with you about what's actually going on in your life right now, that people just really loved. And so my freebie for you is I'm giving away a month of access to that. So you can come to as many events as you want. During that time, they're just video calls, facilitated conversations. So you can bring your ideas, bring your problems, and get some input from people who are really just there to serve. And I'm really, really excited for
it was
that.
It was great. I mean, I know we have a version of that we do as well. And it has been, I know for all of us, like the most enlightening and inspiring and exciting thing. And so when you announced you were bringing this out to the world and really allowing other people this space to do as well, I mean, it just brought me so much joy. And I'm excited to just, support you through that. And, just all you girls, especially if you're any kind of have an MLM, or if you have an online business, or if you have a brick and mortar business and you just want to connect with other like-minded nerdy people like us that, want to talk business and really kind of strategize. This is the space to do it. And it's amazing. You get free access. It's affordable if you decide to join. Like it's just a win-win all the way around. So huge fan of it, Britt.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm so glad. I have big plans for the future. So we'll see how it goes.
I love it. I love it. I love it. Okay. So before we go, we always ask everyone to really describe to us what they feel being a rebel for joy is.
I'm sorry. I had a
love it.
very
We're families.
brief visitor. Okay. So being a rebel for joy makes my heart flutter, because if you've ever read Gretchen Rubin's book on the 4 tendencies, I am a total rebel. That's one of her types. And, it describes somebody who does not like to do what other people tell them to do, but also doesn't like to do what they tell themselves to do. So they have a really hard time getting motivated to do things. But what motivates me as a rebel is joy. And so I find it so, so meaningful as a name, and I'm honored to wave that flag. I think that being your own best advocate for joy is so important, because nobody else is going to show up and hand you a joyful life. And you need to be relentlessly, and if not, nay, dare I say, rebelliously devoted to your own process for joy, whatever that might look like. So
yes. Oh my God. I love that. Cause that is what we do, right? Like we're just like, stop living a mediocre life. Stop pretending you're okay and it's fine. Take off the mask and let's truly start waving the flags of joy and what brings you joy and what's stopping you from joy, and eliminating all the fears and the doubts that hold you back from joy, and truly just saying like, here I am, hear me roar in the rawest form that I'm going to show up in, and it's just great. It reminds me of that Sarah Bareilles song, like, I want to see you be brave. Do you know that one?
yes.
Yeah, totally in that. Okay, girl. So we're going to end it with you saying it loud and you saying it proud. Can you go ahead and share?
I am a rebel for joy.
That is it, girlfriend. Thank you so much for being here. We have honored. If you guys enjoyed this, make sure to take a quick little screenshot and tag Brittany and I on Instagram. Her handle, my handles are below. Thank you guys so much once again, and we'll see you on the next episode.
Bye.